Good morning, everybody. And welcome to the VTT Tech Talk. Hello, YouTube. Happy that you are following us there. Today, we have a special thing to be presented. In fact, here we are in the temple of sensing. We are sensing pressure, temperature, acceleration, whatnot, but we rarely sense emotions and mood. So one of our colleagues here is going to tell us about that, and we are very looking forward to be inspired. So, Johanna Närväinen, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Yes, I'm part of the VTT Health cluster, and I'm located in a team called Smart Health, which is actually in all VTT sites. I'm personally in Kuopio, then we have people in Tampere, Oulu, and here in Espoo. I'm here because Philip asked me to tell you something about this research infrastructure that goes under the umbrella name Neurosensing Lab. And this is a research tool or approach, facility, whatever you want to call it, with the aim to detect non-conscious, fast, transient, emotional responses in people. And usually as a response to certain stimuli that we are presenting to the people. So I'm talking about fast events rather than some long-term monitoring of person's state. And we do this by measuring different physiological signals and gaze, and sometimes some other interesting channels if they fit to the research question. And the kind of natural target for using this kind of research approach is people. But VTT doesn't really do psychological research as such. It's always of instrumental value for us. So we are involved in projects that are studying people and building the excellence in understanding this kind of approach. But the targets of measurement often are products, user experience, or some materials, often related to marketing, communications, for instance. In products, we can measure different product variations, the responses induced by different products, or we can measure different sensory experiences, smells, flavors, packaging, information on the package or on the product, and so on. Or we can measure users while they are undergoing certain experience, gaming, using a web page, using some user interface of your machine, you name it, virtual reality, augmented reality. And of course in marketing that's really for companies often the very interesting target to see or get some idea how their new marketing campaigns might succeed. They are really expensive launches, and marketing people would like to have as much prior understanding and kind of predictions of the success, and especially about failure. What I'm going to do today is that I will present you first two different kind of challenges that often, these are kind of needs that arise. And then I will show you some experiments of the projects that we have been doing with this kind of approach, and then finally I will show you something about how this can be applied to kind of commercial projects and companies' interests. The first challenge is, like I mentioned, what do consumers really feel and think, and what do they like and want? And we can always ask, and it makes sense to ask because it's cheap. You can answer straight away. You can ask simple questions, you can do interviews, you can observe the behavior. But the problem is that people say what they should say. They have certain kind of image of themselves and they answer regarding to that. And they have short memory. If you put people through a bit longer experience, let's say watching a film or TV ad or using a software, they don't really remember what they felt at a certain point. And people don't recognize their feelings. They may feel frustrated, but they just don't notice it if something comes and blocks it or overrules it. So getting complementary information. I'm not saying that we should abandon the classical consumer research, not at all, but we can complement that data with this kind of data that we get from objective monitoring of responses. It can be single events. We can show one package or one design of a car and see how people react to that or compare it to some other car. Or we can do time series. We can make people undergo certain longer process and see how the things evolve during the time. Now this is an example. It's not my data. This is Sun's Research Center, a big US operator in marketing research. And they always do neuromarketing research on the TV advertisement published during Super Bowl commercial breaks. And that's really the slot where the companies are investing. What is shown here is the gaze data. The ad will run here, and then you have the timeline of the responses, and you have the brain signaling. They are doing brain imaging actually, and gaze tracking, and also some biosignals. And they are not showing you brain activation sites and names of brain areas or numbers. They are showing you overall engagement and emotional balance. And these are the two time curves on the bottom row. Since I won't be talking during the ad, I will just say that this is online, you can see it, and this ad is about this little Darth Vader trying his magical powers on household items and dog and something, getting really frustrated. And then his daddy comes home and suddenly has this big event of success. And you can see that there are moments when the emotional balance actually drops below the baseline. So keep observing, there will be the time bar going in, so showing you the moment of the video in time. Oh, it stopped. Great. Which is not the problem for the ad. This is annoying. Let's get it started again, and we were somewhere here maybe. And now the emotional balance starts to go. The car actually started. And people end up, well, I'm not going to play it for the rest of this. People actually end up liking the ad very much, and this really worked, this ad, and it was chosen to be the best ad in this category. You can check this and the other ads on Sun's research pages. The message is here that if you ask the people, what do you think when the car came, when you first saw the car, they don't say that I didn't really like it, and my engagement stayed reasonably high, started to drop a little, but my balance went down quite a lot. And maybe they were able to tell you that when the little Darth Vader succeeded with his power, that was actually funny and I liked it. But if you ask people what they saw in the interior of the car, for instance, they can't tell you what items they were looking at. They won't remember when you ask them about 5 minutes later. But okay, this is one challenge. Challenge number 2 is that there's a huge need to create things that are sensing us. Sensing biosignals is not really well, it's hard, but it's not impossible, and it's been done already. We have all sorts of monitors on us. We have spaces that are monitoring us. But the hard part is in interpreting that in what it means for the person. And the next one step further is making the space or tool or device or software to respond to what it's sensing about you. If you're measuring a heart rate, it's just a number, it's a beats per minute and that's it. But if you are trying to deduce the mental state from the heart rate, it's harder. But basically, everybody in industry that are selling to consumers would like to have smart products, cars, chairs, programs that could sense your feelings and emotions and mental state and possibly even adjust to provide a better experience. But you can't really ask people all the time, how are you feeling, and would you like to change this? Because if they are recognizing their feeling and able to say it, they might as well do the changes themselves. It should be really discreet and smooth and kind of hidden. But we could do monitoring of biosignals, behavior, or gaze, where the eyes are looking, and make the environment smart and smoothly adapting. And of course, I'm coming from the health focus, so in health, for instance, the occupational health could be improved by timing the work better, based on the mental state. For instance, if the stress features are starting to rise. Some stress is good, but too much stress is paralyzing. The software or the chair or something could respond to this. And of course, you have measuring brain or measuring the gaze and using that as a feedback tool to the computers. The brain-computer interface technology is evolving and developing. Now used mainly to control the computer, but it might actually adapt the software and maybe even hardware in certain ways. So wonderful things that we would like to see. What can we see? We are not mind readers. We can't say that somebody is really happy unless we are really looking at the video taped face. But we can see reflections of emotions. For instance, our face, the facial muscles are really reacting very quickly to different change of emotions. And we can look at the brain from the superficial areas, cortical areas, look at the EEG system and those can be interpreted in, for instance, engagement, pleasantness, aversion, visual activity. We can further analyze the EEG responses to get certain kind of cognitive events. And we can look at the body signals or signals that are controlled by autonomous nervous system, such as the pupil diameter will change according to our emotional state, but also according to the incoming light intensity. In skin conductivity, we can measure changes that are due to the activity of the autonomous nervous system, heart rate, breathing rate, temperature, lots of different signals. And gaze is really interesting. It can be used in two ways. You can, first of all, of course, see what people are seeing or looking at. But you can also say what people are not looking at, which is important, for instance, things like TV advertisement. But you can use the gaze also to pinpoint events. Like if you see something happening in the physiological signals, people is getting really upset or like aroused of something, you can go back to the gaze state and see what they were actually looking at while that happened. And of course we can do more refined imaging to see actual brain functions and processes that are taking place. Now I'll show you 4 different projects, going briefly over them. These will give you some idea how we have been applying these in scientific contexts. The first one is the EEG is the main signal that we were using in this project. And simply we asked people to come in the lab, put them the cannulas for drawing blood samples, asked them to sit still, and we served them food. And we asked them to look at the food first and then taste it in small portions, and we followed what happens in the blood glucose levels, insulin levels, and some appetite-related hormonal levels. We looked at the brain, and we looked at the heart rate, and also we asked the people all the time how they are, how much they would like to eat it, and how much they liked when they had eating, and how much they want, and things like that. And also we did really thorough characterization of these people's kind of psychological profiles by questionnaires. This is the EEG data. This is basically looking from top of the head, and the nose is pointing up, and it's showing the spatial location of 1 over alpha band power, which means it's metabolic activity of the cortical superficial brain areas. And we need to have a baseline. So we measure the baseline. People are very different in their normal state. So we need to have something to compare to. And then we compute the differences as percentages from the baseline. So when we are bringing the food in, the visual area in the back of the brain is really highly activated. And it remains so throughout the study. But when people start tasting, actually it's the beta channel that is activated here, and not so much in the viewing part. If we combine, that's EEG activation, brain sites. It doesn't really say much to the common man or woman. But once you make the interpretation in terms of psychological processes going on, and there's a vast body of literature in it, you can actually derive these approach motivation with certain reservations, but still it's quite generally accepted that these are valid interpretations in this kind of situation. You can look at the approach motivation, it's basically the frontal parts of the brain, and you can look at the visual attention, which is the back of the brain. And heart rate is basically telling you about the arousal state. So when they see the portion without tasting it, basically the visual system is on fire. They are really paying much attention visually, but not so much in approach motivation. But only when they are tasting it, you can see the approach motivation is getting higher, and also the autonomous nervous system is accelerating when they're actually doing something about it. We had different products here that we compared, and there were certain interesting cases, like these were hungry people in the morning, and we served chocolate as one product, and everybody liked chocolate. They wanted to eat it, they liked it a lot when they had eaten it. But in this approach motivation, actually the chocolate was negative. So they really didn't want to eat, or they didn't really feel the desire to chocolate in the morning as the first thing, while the berry juice was really the highest motivational response. And this is something that you can't get by asking these transient quick things, because people have this mindset that I like chocolate, and then they say that they like chocolate even if their body doesn't really seem to like it. Well, anyways, next example. I have two examples of eye tracking. This is done with this remote system that it's not something you wear. It's something that observes your eyes while you are looking at a two-dimensional screen. The screen can be something like here on top of the eye tracker. Eye tracker is this small bar beneath the screen. Or it can be a big screen on the stadium, as long as the angle is the same. This was done here actually in Espoo by Anu Seisto's team. Janne Laine is the researcher who was running this experiment. And they were interested in web pages. This is now let's see how this runs, heat map of a web page. So basically where the gaze collects. 40 people have been looking at this web page, and this software actually keeps track of any scrollings or going to the sub-pages. It's reporting only this web page and like maintaining the position. And you can see the clicks as well. Blue clicks are on text and red clicks are on... No, blue clicks are on right and left. Yeah, red and blue, yeah. So this gives you the idea what is seen and what is not seen. Let's see. Okay. Furthermore, you can draw areas on top of certain elements. I mean, heat maps are nice, but they don't give any quantitative data to you. But if you take, for instance, this top banner, make it an area of interest, then take different articles, this footer, the side banner, favorite sidebar, simply draw them and then analyze the statistics. You probably can't see the numbers, but that's not relevant. You get this kind of statistics box for every single item telling you how much time was spent of the total viewing time there, how many people saw that, how many people revisited. Lots of things you can adjust that quite freely. This gives you some numbers of things, and if you change the design of the web page, you can see whether it influences these numbers. This is another eye tracking example, now something with wearable eye trackers. So there's the front camera that is filming the view that people see, and then the camera system is looking at the eyes, the pupils, and projecting the gaze onto that video that has been recorded. We did this in a lunch cafeteria environment, basically asking people to wear the glasses while they were selecting their lunch. And this was a health-oriented campaign. We had some health messages in the environment. And what do people notice? What do they not notice? Which happened to be the health banners and different advertisings from the Heart Association. People don't really pay attention to such things, was the result from this study. Or we didn't place them correctly, because the places that people see can be detected from this kind of data. And of course the durations, how long people spend time looking at something, and also where do they see and where do they not, and how, when they are really confused about finding the forks and knives and things like that. You can see amazingly a lot of things here. So the output video is, this is not the video, this is one frame of the video, but you get the scene camera view, and you have this yellow circle here is the gaze. So this person is looking at this particular food at this moment, and everything is recorded at 30 Hertz. And finally, this is more like building the excellence part. We are participating in this big Academy of Finland funded Maria project, collaborating with University of Eastern Finland. And we are looking at the reward anticipation process. What happens in the people when they want something? And how does it seem to be in different types of people, whether the people are really paying lots of attention to food or not? This is food-related context. Whether the people have problems with their eating, whether the people are normal weight or obese. And we also have obese population that is going to different kind of counseling programs, and some of them to the stomach reduction surgery. And we will see them in a year to see if their kind of natural reactivity to food cues has changed. And we are also doing psychological tests using this implicit association test and questionnaires, and also drawing blood samples to see the reward-related hormonal levels. So it's a big, massive study. Our interest, of course, in this is in this interpretation of the psychophysiological signals, but also we are creating a huge amount of data, and it's really a big data problem. And we are trying some novel data analysis methods on it. And in the health view, of course, it has consequences to these big national and international health issues, such as obesity and lifestyle-related diseases. Maybe we can find tools to make the counseling more efficient and maybe target it to the people. Say that, okay, you are this kind of people, then we should counsel you this way. And you are that kind of person. For you, this kind of message would be more efficient. So this kind of national health-related issues are related to this project. I'm really quite enthusiastic about this one, but then I'm a scientist. So we have lots of different other projects going. I'm not going in detail in these. But this is the hardware that we are running. So we have this clinical scale EEG system in our use, and also at VTT we have this mobile EEG cap that can be really used in shops or whatever real-life situations you want. And we have the eye tracking, that is the remote version here. You can see the bar here. But also at VTT we have the goggles that were used in one of my examples. And we can attach all certain different kinds of biosignal monitoring or any other kind of signal monitoring. As long as it's direct current in certain voltage range, we can plug into this same EEG data acquisition system, so we get everything in the same time frame, which is very convenient, and we can put event markers and all sorts of things either automatically from some software or manually markers. And of course we have access to functional imaging, and we have been using the Noldus face reader system, and with the University of Eastern Finland we have done lots of things that require their really excellence that we don't have at VTT, and we don't really even want to have that at VTT. So this is not a single measurement, as I hope I have already shown you, but it's made of blocks. So depending on the research question, we can make certain different structures that are our tool to dig into the problem. For instance, in large scientific study like Maria I showed you, we do the heavy version, all sorts of things, sometimes simultaneously, sometimes one after each other. But if we are doing something, for instance, testing product variations or just pictures of different packages, for instance, we could do just simple physiological monitoring to see the excitement, and do eye tracking to see the gaze, and ask people. Explicit ratings means asking people how they are feeling and thinking. Or if we are doing some user experience related things, we might ask our usability people to come over and do their expertise and look at the brain and the body functions, eye tracking and explicit rating. All sorts of things you can combine together to get the idea. For the companies, companies probably have needs and questions that I don't even know about. But some obvious things is, of course, the user experience. It may be in real life, it can be a software, it can be virtual reality, teaching in virtual reality, lots of different things where you might want to see the gaze and the biosignals. Or it can be designs, marketing designs, it can be actual products, it can be visual presentations of things. Or this can be used as additional block in something that you or some other person at VTT is doing. When you have a project where you're designing something for companies or, well, in some other projects as well, you might add some elements of neurosensing to complement your understanding. It can be something that you use while you are developing things to see that you are going the right way, or choose between different solutions and continue from there, like iteratively. Or it can be kind of assessing the feelings that the actual final product is doing, getting like more convincing end products. Well, you know your problems more than I do, so you can probably think how you could use this kind of thing in it. What we have been doing is that in consumer studies there have been some mainly eye tracking in it, and also in food studies we have studied the mastication muscles to see how the novel food products that have been produced by VTT are actually ground down in the mouth by the consumers. And that was just a part of it, and then it went further to analyze. We have published a few papers about that as well. So this is all I had to say today, and I'm happy to discuss any ideas if you have, or answer any questions that you might come up with.
Well, that's truly fascinating. I think that the business there is very, very potential. We can feel that. Do we have questions here? Yes, one here.
Thanks for nice talk. I would like to ask, could you somehow compete with the lie detectors producers? This looks like very similar what they are following and measuring.
Probably not on like routine level. I mean, companies that are doing the same thing over and over again with established meters and established analysis methods, they are doing so efficiently that VTT doesn't really even want to compete with companies. But we can collaborate with companies when they want to make better things, better ones. And of course, among ourselves, we are trying to get better all the time. So I think the excellence is what is separating from us, from the standard users. So the answer is probably not as such, but that's an interesting field that could be probably, I mean, they are not exactly really reliable tools, so yeah.
Other questions? So in VTT, basically, our skill is data fusion, broader experience, hardware, software, algorithms, and offering service to companies who want to investigate the potential in this field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that the question?
Well, actually, maybe you confirm this.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we are providing the service as well. So if the companies want to have some problem that is not a typical problem that the companies have, I mean, this kind of neuromarketing companies or lie detector companies, if they are not ready to answer that directly, if it's slightly different or multidisciplinary or something, then I guess VTT can work as a service provider as well. And if it is part of some other project here, then it's quite natural to get this kind of studies as a part of the larger project. And then, of course, when we are evolving with this and getting the big data analysis in it, then I can see that we can actually have something of our own, and then we are not competing with them, but providing something quite in other league, I think.
Or maybe you spin off somewhere. Maybe you offer maybe you offer EEG wearables and goggles, and in exchange, people sell the data back to you. And
possibly,
it certainly has a tremendous value, I think. Last question, maybe. Yes, here we have one.
Yeah, thank you for the talk. A question, since I have had the fortune of designing user interfaces for other people to use, and you were showing those web pages and how people look at them and how they when do they click things. Have you done study on the usability of some interface other than just web pages?
I haven't done any such studies because I haven't had a project for it, basically. But in this eye tracking, you can basically display any material. You can ask the people to play a game or whatever you do. With this remote tracking, it must be on one two-dimensional screen. But if you use the goggles, then of course you have the free. Yeah, it would be interesting to do. I would like to do it, and I would like to measure the biosignals while people are doing it. Particularly gaming and virtual reality. With virtual reality glasses, you have some manufacturers have actually embedded eye tracking in them, so it's possible to do that. And if you have the biosignals and EEG, particularly, I think that's quite nice. And there are some scientific papers that have used that, but they are. I mean, it's in very early phase. The whole industry of virtual reality and also the science of studying the user experience in it. For instance, the virtual sickness. Some people really feel ill after 2 minutes of being in virtual reality, and some people can do it for hours. What's the difference in these people and how it's affecting the experience and so on? And of course the user experience itself. But yeah, we should talk.
Sounds like a plan. So do we have another question, a last one? Well, if not, at least thank you, Johanna, for your great talk. I invite everybody to contact us, contact Johanna Närväinen, email, if you want to collaborate with us. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thanks.